Any idea that is a separated idea from unity is the belief of the ego itself.
As soon as you solve the puzzle changes.
The hardest things that my ego always grasped at was this idea that what is the ego? It's one of the most misunderstood and paradoxical topic in both psychology and spirituality. The word ego gets thrown around a lot. So what does it truly mean? In modern psychology, the ego began as the idea of the self, first formalized by Sigmund Freud as the part of us that mediates between impulse and control. Then came Carl Jung, who took it deeper. He saw that the ego as the center of the conscious mind, but not the whole self. The role of the ego can be understood as the bridge between the conscious and subconscious mind. The ego is an aspect in which one can further understand oneself by using the information of the subconscious mind and bringing it into the conscious mind, making sense of our internal world by translating the subtle impressions of the unconscious into something we can consciously understand. But the ego is meant to serve awareness, not be the awareness. Yet for many, the ego becomes the mask we mistake for our true identity. This goes all the way back to our evolutionary roots. The ego developed as a survival tool, as a way for us to navigate danger, protect the body, and build a sense of individual identity in a wild and unpredictable world. It gave us the self-awareness and the intellect to grow, adapt, and eventually thrive, becoming the complex human beings we are today. Because the ego's core drive is survival, it naturally tries to take the role of the mind's primary operator. It wants to be in charge, to make decisions, control outcomes, and keep everything predictable. But it's our role to recognize that we are so much more than the ego. We are beyond the physical body, beyond the thoughts, beyond the emotions, all of which the ego tries to claim as me or mine, as we are the awareness behind it all, the observer, the consciousness, the presence that never changes, even as the ego shifts and adapts. To be able to transcend the ego and use it as the sharpened tool that it is, we must first understand its nature. The ego's primary role is to create order for the sake of survival. It does this by creating a sense of separation, allowing the mind to recognize patterns, label experiences, and make logical sense of the world. This ability to separate, label, and categorize has been a very useful tool, especially from the evolutionary standpoint. It helped our ancestors survive in dangerous environments by quickly identifying threats, remembering patterns, and forming alliances based on identity. By creating a sense of me versus other, the ego allowed early humans to build tribes, develop culture, and protect themselves from harm. And even today, it serves in powerful ways, as it helps us navigate society, set goals, express individuality, and function in this world. But what once helped us survive is now limiting our ability to thrive. Just look at the world today. We're facing a massive mental health crisis. Whether it be anxiety, depression, or an identity confusion, they are all rising across the globe, with many organizations warning us of the looming mental health pandemic. This crisis is rooted in identifying with something you are not, and that is the core role of the ego. When we identify with the surface level aspect of ourselves, roles, thoughts, emotions, the ego itself, we unconsciously separate from our true self. Instead of being the awareness behind it all, we get lost in the mask. And the further we drift from that inner truth, the more disconnected, anxious, and unstable we feel. So what is one's true self? Well, it is consciousness. It is the pure awareness behind all experiences. The unchanging presence beyond the thoughts, emotions, body, and identity. As Carl Jung puts it, the self is not only the center, but also the circumference, which embraces both conscious and unconscious. It is the center of this totality. To realize this true self, to awaken to it fully, is what many traditions call self-realization.
it is all connected. It's like once you see it once, it's like it's kind of hard to not see unity itself. It's like you can create these separations of understanding and be like, yeah, but I'm still having this cognitive dissonance about something. I still have these beliefs of separation that I need to like resolve before I get to this unity realization again. But even that is itself is an illusion.
This brings us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of the spiritual path, the ego and the true role it plays. The ego is often mistaken as something negative, but from the lens of non-duality, there is no such thing as negative. The ego isn't here to be destroyed or killed. It is here to be understood. Its proper role is to help us explore and experience duality, contrasts, identity, and relationships, so we can come to know ourselves more deeply, as the ego is a mirror, not the enemy. There is a common confusion of needing to kill off the ego for transcendence and to escape suffering, but this is also a trick of the ego itself.
I say this, like any idea that is a separated idea from unity is the belief of the ego itself.
As the ego will even disguise itself as your spiritual self, the so-called spiritual ego. Whispering, you're not whole yet, you still have something to fix, something to erase. But the moment you believe there is something wrong with you, something missing, you fall back into separation. And separation is the only belief the ego has. That is its tool. That is its lens. That is its illusion.
It's an ever-changing puzzle.
Bro, right? It's like, that's why it's like really funny, because it's like whatever you know, this ego obviously knows because he is you.
Exactly.
So it's like
So
you're
as
just
soon
always
as-
battling that guy.
As soon as you solve the puzzle changes.
It's like even the idea that you got it is the puzzle. It's like, oh, you do.
You know, obviously I'm speaking, there is a puzzle.
Right,
In itself
yeah.
is the ego, right?
Right, yeah, 100%. I mean, like I fell for that trap too. Like when, like in my later stages of realizations, where I was like, oh, this must be enlightenment. Oh, this must be enlightenment. Oh, this must be enlightenment. It's like, bro, wait, what are you doing? It's like, why are you even seeking enlightenment? It's like you're already enlightened.
As we move through the world of duality, we are constantly playing the game of remembering who we truly are. This is the dance between duality and non-duality, the interplay of form and formless, ego and essence. Every time we forget our true nature, every time we step out of alignment, the ego steps in with its puzzle, its role, its stories, not to punish us, but to remind us who we truly are.
Hardest things that like my ego always grasped at was this idea that like when I watch someone else do something, I was like embarrassed for them, because if I were in that position, I would feel embarrassed. But then I realized I was like, well, obviously they're not embarrassed because they're doing it and they're having fun doing it.
Yeah.
So this is my perspective of it, doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so that's just my ego telling me, it's like, oh, just if that's not fully aligned with you, you're going to feel a certain way.
It's literally just in your imagination you're being embarrassed, when like in the present moment in reality, perfectly fine, like, yeah.
The role you play outside the ego, as the witness, is your ability to respond. The ego reacts, automatically, habitually, rooted in fear, survival, and past conditions. But the true self responds, with presence, clarity, and freedom from attachment. When you are reacting, you are on autopilot, caught in the ego's looping puzzle. But when you're responding, you are awake, acting from your center and not from your conditioning. And the key to this awareness is pattern recognition, seeing where you are stuck on autopilot, where you have been conditioned, and where you are replaying the same cycles. To notice these loops, step beyond them, that is the beginning of self-realization.
At least until you kind of realize and break out of that cycle, that's
Right.
what it is essentially.
Right. And so in yoga, they call this the wheel of samsara, or the wheel of suffering. And so suffering really comes from the grasping of trying to identify as something. And so, you know, they call it the wheel of samsara because it's cyclical, right?
Yeah.
And so until you separate yourself from karma itself, the wheel of suffering itself, and you're now the observer of it, then you're always continuing suffering. And that's where it's like the distinction between suffering and like negative quote unquote emotions, or like says like, oh, I do not like I don't know, like a hamburger or something. It's like, I don't like a hamburger, but the only reason you know you don't like it is because you know you like something else. So it's not like that I'm still in the suffering, it's just I know what I like and don't like. Suffering doesn't actually have any connotation between duality like that. It's a whole separate system.
Yeah.
In many traditions, the dynamic between the ego and the true self has been explored in different ways, as this is a fundamental description of reality as a human, especially for those on the path of self-realization. In yoga, it's seen as Anhakara, the I maker, versus the Atman, the true self beyond all identities. In Buddhism, it's the teaching of Anatta, or non-self, which points to the illusion of any fixed identity. In Taoism, it is the contrast between resistance and the effortless flow of the Tao, where the ego disrupts harmony by clinging, forcing, and defining. And in Christianity, it is the dying of the false self, so that the Christ within may live. Though the language differs, the essence is the same. The ego creates the illusion of separation. The true self is what remains after the illusion fades away.
That's why it's like weird, because it's like you're trying to explain this, you know, this idea of unity to people, this idea of like greater consciousness, infinite intelligence, God, or whatever the fuck you want to say it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many infinite ways of like tackling this one idea, which is not even one idea. The idea itself is still a separation of what it truly is.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why you have so many prophets and religions and stuff and spiritual teachers explaining in different aspects, in different ratios, because like everyone's so unique that they're just different angles of trying to hit it.
Exactly. And like, it's not that one's right or wrong, it's that multiple things can be right at the same time.
Yeah, that's why it's a paradox.
Yeah.
The logistical mind, you know, the egoic mind cannot understand what paradox is, because paradox is not a logistical issue. It's an issue of understanding unity.
Yeah. The fact that everybody's different and there's an infinite number of people, and therefore there's an infinite number of solutions, because everybody has to come to that
Same solution,
understanding for themselves.
Right.
And even though it's the same, it's different.
Right.
Now that we have explored how the ego functions across traditions, let us take it even deeper to help in the path of realization. The ego's belief in separation does not just live in the mind, but it gets stored in the body. This is reflected in the chakra systems, particularly in the lower 3 chakras, as these are the chakras in which human beings work through for transcendence. These are the foundational energy centers that govern survival, emotion, and personal power. And through these centers, the ego expresses its 3 core illusions. The root chakra is associated with security and grounding. The ego distorts this center's belief with fear, anxiety, and instability. It will say things such as, "I lack security," or "I am not safe," but in truth, you are supported by life itself. The sacral chakra is associated with creativity and emotion. Here, the ego distorts this center's belief with shame, guilt, and depression, whispering things such as, "I am not enough," or "I am not worthy." But in reality, you are inherently whole, creative, and worthy of love. The solar plexus chakra is associated with the personal power. The ego distorts this center with anger, frustration, and need to conquer, saying things such as, "I must control," or "I must prove myself." But in reality, true power comes from surrender, alignment, and inner stillness. These are the 3 emotional masks of the ego, but behind all of them, the same illusion. The illusion of separation, which always forms from a feeling of lack, whether there is a lack of safety, lack of worth, or a lack of true power. Now, there is a misunderstood experience that often arises in higher states of concentration, one that many refer to as ego death. In this moment of deep inner stillness, the ego becomes silent, not because it's destroyed, but because consciousness has expanded beyond it. But if this stillness is forced, or entered without proper surrender, the ego may panic. It will grasp onto any sort of attachment to maintain its existence, even projecting the illusion that you are dying. This happens when we mistake ourselves for the ego itself. So when it begins to dissolve, we perceive it as our death, when in truth, it's simply the falling away of identification. What's actually happening is a shift into higher states of consciousness, a space where nothing needs to be added, fixed, or controlled. A vast, infinite, formless state, where truth reveals itself effortlessly. A deep, void-like stillness, yet overflowing with unconditional love, limitless presence, and the remembrance of your infinite nature. The ego gets a bad reputation, but it's not here to be fought. It's here to be understood and loved. This is because of the role of forgetting you are a non-dual being. Pure consciousness experiences itself through the lens of duality. And in this realm of duality, the ego has its part to play. It gives contrast, it gives perspectives. It creates the world of duality, the illusion of separation. So to further understand the infinite nature of reality, so you can experience and deeply know oneself. When we forget and identify with such aspects of duality, this is where the confusion is made, as people are identifying as something they are not, mistaking the reflection for the self. So it is not to kill the ego, but to transcend identification with it, to use this sharp, double-edged sword as its proper tool, to discover more about oneself through the depths of the subconscious mind, to live fully in the world of form while remembering you are formless, as it is oneness itself, creating and expressing to further understand oneself.
It's so beautifully worded. You were like, if you do end up responding to it, because the ego, regardless of your state, is always going to like give you something to look at.
Right.
It's whether or not you respond to it.
Right. It's all about response. So it's like, you aren't even the doer, right? So it's like, you're only doing and acting and reacting, and you're not actually being conscious about anything. So it's all about response. Response is the only way you can consciously do action in this reality.
Yeah.
That's it for today's video. Like, subscribe, and leave any comments or questions that you want me to talk about. Do you ever feel lost, confused about who you are, why you're here, and what your true purpose is? Do you feel disconnected, lacking the purpose, direction, or energy to do what you truly want in life? I know that feeling well because I lived it, but through that confusion, I discovered something powerful. The deeper meaning you're searching for is already within you. The problem is, most people are never taught how to access it. That's why I'm dedicating my life to help others reconnect with their true self, to understand what life is really about, break free from limitations, and master their energy. My name is Ellislhernandez, and my journey began with a powerful awakening after a long period of depression and disconnection. And since then, I spent years diving deep into spirituality, science, philosophy, and energetic mastery. Through practices like meditation, yoga, qigong, holistic health, and a lot more, I've learned how to activate my energy, live in effortless flow, and follow my true passion. Now, I help others do the same. I work with people who are ready to break through, align their soul's purpose, and step into the most vibrant, awakened version of themselves. If that's you, I offer personalized one-on-one coaching to guide and accelerate your transformation. I also offer online courses designed to unlock your potential. And I have a YouTube channel filled with powerful insights to guide your journey. You don't have to stay stuck, and you don't have to keep searching. The path is already unfolding. Are you ready to step into the life you are meant to live and master your own energy? Click below to begin the journey today.